Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Plat and with Laliette. Welcome to our not podcast conversation. How was your week in the Bazaar, been, Laliette?
It's been a little rough, I'm not gonna lie. We're gonna get into all the reasons why things could be rough. But what I can say for sure, boards got tougher, meta got tighter. I've been playing all three heroes. I don't win over 7 games across all three heroes on average anymore for the
Yeah,
first time in the Bazaar.
the days of me being at an average of 9.5 wins is a thing of the past right now. I'm still doing I do pretty good. Like whenever I hit record to do a video, the game knows, and I just do way better. I think subconsciously I'm just more turned on because I don't want to embarrass myself. Um, but like last night, I did like 3 or 4 games in a row. I had a genuine start to finish. I felt reasonably strong. Like, okay, started with the silver ATM, had some like shielding synergy. I went 0 wins in the entire run. I think that was my first honestly 0 wins where I didn't just concede out of like, I'm like salty. And I had like one run like that, and then a bunch of like four, a 2 win. Like it was rough. And some of these boards, like you said, are very strong. But I'm still not having trouble getting 10 wins. But I think I was really tilted though. It was like 2 a.m. and I was like, another one. I'm not quitting till I win. And I was just like, after that many times, I'm like, I'm out of. I had to open my chest to get currency, and I'm like, this is a problem. That's how I knew I had to stop. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And offline we did talk about how I do think you're like a top 10 pig player. Pig is not amazing right now. He has some really strong items and really strong builds, but it's not like if you miss B, it can be really tough. But you've been able to remain successful because you're a much better pig player than me, and you basically always play pig. So I'm happy for your success. But I can tell you, I've been trying to get better at dually because like just playing Vanessa mirrors all the time is boring as hell, and I have been getting destroyed, as I like to call him, 5 win dually.
yeah, he's I don't Dooley. I thought would be my favorite character. Obviously, I haven't played him enough to make this judgment, but I just don't have fun with the mechanic of the core. To me, it feels, even though he's open in a lot of ways and he's all about making these crazy combos, I just don't enjoy the play style of Dooley, where I I don't like using items to charge items, that haste other items, to charge other items. To me, even though all of his builds do different things, at the end of it, they all feel kind of similar about looping something. And again, that's just probably me, but like I also can't get over the fact how much I love Pygmalion. Just buy, sell, buy, re-roll every shop. I don't care about money. I have 200 gold, whatever. Um, so I think it's more like I've got so used to Pig that characters that deviate from that playstyle are just have a negative impact on me. I'm like, I don't want to fucking, because then I start the game, I don't get the core I want, and Pig, I don't care. I just sell the item, move on. But like, I'm gonna sell my core. I want companion core. That's the only good one, bro. That's not true, but it does seem to be better than the rest. Um, but yeah, so we kind of wanted to talk really quick, not for very long, but there was no balance patch this week. I think that is, it's a holiday weekend. However, the holiday weekend it was still the week before. I feel like they could have done something and had it go live. Maybe they were afraid to do that because they were going to be off and they didn't want to introduce a bug that they would have to come into work to fix, something like that. Um, I think once the game goes open beta or fully open, just released, I don't think in the current state of the game, kind of like this, that they're going to want to skip those weeks, even if there's a holiday weekend. I think they'll want to keep a few people on staff, maybe just to work a half day in case they got to fix some sort of bug or something. Um, because it's been kind of rough out here. There's been no change, and like you said, the meta is really developed. There is a meta, but last I heard, there was no metas in the Bazaar. But there's definitely the strong stuff. Um, so I know you wanted to talk about the closed beta issues specifically. You had and I'll add on to it, but I know this is a topic you brought up. So I want to let you start off here, and then I'll kind of add. So yeah, first, no balance patch, but what other kind of issues are there as well?
So this is just based off of the evidence that I have and I've put together, and so as a data scientist, sometimes I get really curious about things. So we know, because it's been said by multiple people on the staff and by Kriparian, that there is no matchmaking, right? I felt that as I was going up further in the ladder, my matches were getting much tougher. One reason for that could be people are just getting way better at the game, and I'm not advancing as much as they're catching up to me. Um, but one thing I didn't think of is a possible shrinking player base, right? So, of course, if you're going to have about 30% of people be able to be profitable in the game or somewhere, around 27 or whatever, then the less people in the game, that kicks some people out from who used to be profitable and then no longer profitable. And I feel like this week, that's what happened to me. I became a non-profitable player, maybe a 6.5 on average win player, and it felt really bad. So like I've been in Legend all week. It felt to me like there was literally a Legend queue because all of a sudden this patch came out not last Wednesday, the Wednesday before, and I went from just like getting averaging 9 wins a game, doing great, and not forcing builds, but like playing what is given to me, and for the most part, um, playing multiple characters, never being able to really do better than 5 wins on average with Dooley. But like if I played the other two, I could average 9 wins, and that stopped. Sometime around, I would say Sunday or Monday is when things really turned for me. And now I believe that it is because the economic system of having to pay to play makes it so that people who are not winning can only really play their free game per day. And if there's less people playing in ranked, it's going to become basically like the top 5,000-ish players beating the crap out of each other. And of course, only the top 30% will be profitable of those players. And there's going to be a lot of RNG involved because the skill gaps won't be that large between, let's say, the 500th player and the 5,000th player. The skill gap is going to be a lot closer than it would be between the 5,000th player and the 100,000th player back when we first launched and everybody was playing and everybody had currency, and people were getting tickets here and there. So I think that's where I want to leave that to start and let Plat build off of that.
Yeah, so like I kind of used the when we were talking before this, I was using the Hearthstone Battlegrounds analogy, where it's like, yeah, if you just go into a game, whatever, half win, half lose. But like, assume you have the top 8 players in the world in there. It doesn't matter that they're the top 8 players. Half of them lose that. Half of them get top 4, half of them get bottom 4. And I feel like if you expand that, the analogy basically to now you have 1,000 players. The top 500 win, the bottom 500 lose. They're still the best players, but basically, as the pool of players gets bigger, the bottom and the top gets more extreme. And inversely, as our player base shrinks because of no patches, because the game is not as exciting, because it's still in closed beta. As the player base starts to shrink, it just makes it so it's harder and harder and harder to get into that top player base, right? If there's 10,000 players and 5,000 are winners, now suddenly you get to 5,000 players, only 2,500 are winners. I mean, it's a simple math problem. Although, I don't like saying simple. Math isn't simple in general. Chat GPT has been our friend, but yeah, the idea is as our player base shrinks, it just becomes harder to be a winner, even if you're still as good as you were. And I think the player base is definitely shrinking. I don't have the numbers, but just based off of the amount of really strong early game builds, middle game builds, and late game builds I've come across, I just don't believe that there's thousands of players reaching these high ranks because there's so much consistency in the higher ranks of like meta builds of just like insane infinite loop Vanessas or insane infinite freeze Vanessas or insane poison Vanessas. There's a Pygmalion up there every now and then, but it's usually me. It's not usually other people. But yeah, and so I guess this is a kind of a later topic, but I really think balance patches are going to be the most important thing because there's nothing more encouraging. One, if every Wednesday there's a balance patch coming, it does two things to keep players. One, if you're playing on Saturday, Sunday, and there's no one that you don't know if a balance patch is coming up, you might just quit right then. But if you're like playing on Saturday and Sunday, you're like, all right, there's only 2 more days to a balance patch. I mean, I could stomach it until then, right? Like you kind of have this, like you have a higher tolerance for bad metas. Also, if you just do decide to leave still, you'll still want to come back to see it. And there's like no better feeling than coming back if you're like, you lose the force field or something, I don't know. Or you lose the puffer fish. That's the more common thing right now. And then you read the patch notes and pufferfish gets hit. There's nothing more exciting than knowing like that thing that beat me is now weaker. So my exact same build that got 7 wins could have gotten 9 or 10 wins this time, So, or maybe got 6 wins and now I could have gotten 10 wins because all the pufferfishes are gone. So it encourages people to come back and play, even if nothing that they care about got buffed. Nerfing the shit that kills you is just exciting as a player. You're like, ooh, now that I don't have to worry about pufferfish, maybe I can use brass knuckles. Finally, maybe brass knuckles is gonna be good. The answer is it's not, but it like maybe you can actually win with it now instead of getting dominated, because certain things against things like pufferfish, like it has an 8-second cooldown on day 9. Like you're never getting to attack with that, bro, unless you have 15,000 HP, which I do. But if it takes 8 seconds to fire and it doesn't kill them, yeah, right. Spike Shield works because it's 8 seconds, but it does 14,000 damage against a 3,000 HP Vanessa. It doesn't matter if she triples her health with shields, you still one-shot her. But now I'm getting into the nitty-gritty about specific meta stuff. But yeah,
I did want to go back to the player economy as well, real quick, because
yes,
like we hit on a bunch of great points about players and distributions and who can win and who can't. And I think even people who want to play ranked are going to get in this situation where they're just not quite good enough to be able to play ranked more than once a day, because you have to have 100 gems.
yeah,
And if you're not getting chests and not getting enough of the chests, you like, even if you can win a little bit, maybe you can play a second game every day of ranked, but that's really it. You play 2 of those games. You used to play 10, right? Because you loved this game, or when you had the ability, when it was easier and you were a profitable player. But now that you've run out of money, you really don't want to spend your own money because you feel like it's not your fault. Nobody really takes ownership that, like, because you didn't get worse at the game, other people must have got better, right?
yeah,
So that's the situation I feel like I'm in right now. Is out of the players who are currently playing the game, there's just way more of them percentage-wise that are better than me than there ever was before, and it doesn't feel great. It doesn't stop me from playing because I still love the game and I still want to get better. But if I ran out of currency in the game, which would be really frustrating, going from like 2,500 to 0, but I would not spend my own money, even though I could definitely afford to do so, just out of like, I don't know, like a bad taste in my mouth, where it's like, well, it's not my fault that I'm losing all of these games. Like, I'm not going to give you more of my money. Fix your game. Maybe when you get a patch, then I'll put some money in.
yeah. We spoke about this exact issue basically last week. Is what happens when people can't play ranked? They're expected to play unranked, and unranked is dog water because people are re-rolling to get the high rolls. So it's like the ranked mode in balance cranked up to 11. Because I mean, I was in the Discord and people are like, I always re-roll day 2 if I don't high roll a early monster skill that I want. Because who cares? It's day 2. I could re-roll it 10 times in 15 minutes or something. And so the unranked mode being completely so people aren't going to go to the unranked mode to try to farm tickets. They're just going to not play. And then when people don't play and they don't go back into ranked, it further expands the issue of the meta builds. It's harder to win because only the best players are in ranked. You don't get casual players in there, and it's I mean, it's just a cycle, right? So what is the core problem? I mean, I think they could fix a lot of this stuff and it would kind of solve everything in a sense. That maybe they should address it all. But if unranked was incredibly fun, you couldn't just re-roll without punishment. That could potentially fix it, because now suddenly you could actually potentially get 10 wins without having to spend your time re-rolling. If they do balance patches, people are willing to maybe spend money to actually get into ranked, and then maybe they get good enough to kind of keep doing it. But it's just kind of a bunch of like little problems that happen to feed into each other in a vicious cycle kind of way. And
Yes,
I want to state, I'm not a doomer. I'm not like, this game's EOS, bro.
no,
This game is doing great. It's going to continue doing great. It's closed beta. In a sense, I am a paying customer and I want it to be a functional, good game. But luckily, it is a functional, good game. It just, in a closed beta, I don't expect it to have all of its problems solved. We're just stating things that I would like to see addressed, or solutions to, over the course of an open beta and full release, if the game wants to be as big as it can be. That's all I'm saying. I'm not a doomer.
no, we're not at all. And we only give like constructive criticism. So it's like, these are the things that we would like to see addressed, and we want to make sure that they know about, at least from like a player's perspective. Like, we're both like top 2,000, 1,000, ranked players, whatever that means. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have
But
170 chests right now. I had more, but I had to
yeah,
open. I had 183, but I opened a couple to get some currency. So
so I don't know if that makes our word matter any more or less, but like, we care about the game. We want the game to be great, and the game is great. And some of these things, like, we need a new influx, and I think the way they originally paced it was perfect, right? Because right now we should be going into open beta based on their original plans.
Mhm.
That's a huge new influx of players. That's a bunch of new economy getting out there for everybody, and blah blah blah. And with that release, I'd also expect a couple changes, maybe like some kind of quest system or some login rewards for the
That will
long.
be so big. I didn't think they needed it. I have completely changed my mind on that. I think daily quests, that if they're done right to give you some currency to get you into the games, is going to be so important. They'll probably have a battle pass and shit too. Like they're probably going to monetize a lot of ways. But sorry, continue.
And maybe even something, I don't, maybe this is full launch, but like full launch would have been in January, right? So we'd only be a month out from full launch right now as well. So there's a lot of things where it's like the pacing changed because of a bunch of like server issues, and then want to make sure the game is ready for release, which we support, but that causes unintended consequences, right? Like this low resource base, where only the only people who really have the in-game currency that was given to them by earning it in game to play right now are like legends players, like that for the most part. And so when somebody comes in that was silver and they haven't played for a few days, and they go to do their free game and they get absolutely freaking wrecked day 1, 2, 3, 4 by people 2, 3 levels higher than them, they're like, there's something wrong with ranked, because they did, maybe if this is the first time they played in this new patch, right?
Yeah.
I thought something was wrong with ranked, because like you can high roll and get 3 levels higher than the other player, even when they made no mistakes with like grabbing every opportunity for exp. That's just how it is now that we got rid of Deborah, and now the value of exp has gone way up.
I think one of the main goals of the game should be to get as many players as possible into ranked relatively easily, playing in that queue. Um, because like again, who is in ranked is the players with currency. Who has currency? The players who have won the most. So if you're going in casually because you get your one daily free ticket, everyone goes in once a day. It's still gonna be. I've played 5, 6 games in ranked today, right? Everyone, Kriparian's played maybe 59 games today in ranked. Who knows? But point is, players that are good, that are playing a lot, are going to be 90% of the ghosts. Is that an actual mathematical number? No, I don't actually know how many ghosts. But the point is, over 50%, probably by a substantial margin, are going to be the best players in the game, or just the people that have the currency to keep playing ranked, which are usually the best players in the game. And you're going in not having enough currency to play ranked, so you're going up against really hard opponents all the time. Whereas if you can get a huge influx, like everyone gets not one free ticket a day, but they get their ticket and then they get 2,000 gems, or 200 gems, 300 gems to play more, then suddenly now it's going to be a little more even, because the best players in the world are currently, the limiting factor is the resources. If more players could all get in, it would more equal out to 50-50, because it doesn't matter if you give me 6,000 gems. I'm not playing an extra 60 games a day. I'm not going to play one more game a day. But all the weaker players will get in there, so it'll just add way more weakness into the ranked pool, which is important, because at the end of the day, it's a game about having fun. I want my opponents to be weaker. You want your opponents to be weaker. Having 10x the player base in there will make the low end weaker and the high end stronger, which is kind of fun because it tends to just be fun in general. But yeah, overall, I think they need to get a lot of people into ranked as quickly as possible. Daily currency, which I was originally not against, but I was like, who needs it? Then I was like, okay, I'm in a privileged position. I understand that now.
Yeah.
They just
I'm
need
not
to,
even
they want to get a
against
bunch of people in it.
quests, daily logins to give a third currency and have a third separate queue, right? And you might be like, there's not going to be enough players. And it's like, well, the way the ghost system works is, even if there's a very small player base, there's still always enough players, right? Always
Yeah.
enough to run the games. But the thing that I think would be cool is you would just not have the cosmetic rewards, right? And we would be looking at rewards for just like tickets and maybe some gems, right? And it would be less rewards, but you would have an entry fee, which would alleviate the problem that people are complaining about from unranked, right? That you can just re-roll as much as you want, and that would also make it so that you wouldn't have to do the you can't play for 30 minutes, because I know people don't like just the flavor of that idea.
Yeah, I wonder if they could do like you said, a third mode that is ranked, that is just as no cosmetic rewards, but winning or losing will affect your rank. You lose a game, so if you try to re-roll, you instantly count as a lot. it counts as 0 wins. You go down and I don't know 2 ranks. Stuff I don't know. They can figure out the math behind that, but I think that could be reasonable.
And
Getting people, you want to get a queue where people aren't encouraged to reroll because there's a consequence, while also having it separate from the cosmetics, so the cosmetics theoretically have some value to, even though they're fucking JPEGs, but still like humans are humans, they have value. Um, I kind of like the idea of a third queue. I don't think they'll go that route, but I think as long as I, I'm very nervous about daily quest because I don't want a daily quest that says shield for 4,000. Now I'm like, well, now I gotta force fucking shield builds and lose trying to force shield builds and unranked. Like, I want them to do like play game as pig or something like that. Maybe encourage a character, but I think they need to be broad enough to not force specific builds in game. Or it could just be like win 10 PvP encounters, win 10 PvE, things that you're going to do by just playing the game a lot, have nothing tied to doing a specific thing in a build sense. I just think that's such a bad incentive and will force everyone to force dog shit and lose and feel bad about getting like, oh, I spent 100, especially if you're in ranked, because I want to play ranked. Now I lost my currency to get half the currency back. But yeah, as long as they do it right, I'm not worried at all.
yeah, I do like the idea though of play an ammo build. I don't know how maybe it's just you have to end the game with an ammo build. Um, I like the idea of those kind of things where it's like, all right, maybe you do have to play an unranked, but it's like, let's play a run and just play with this specific build. Because you know what I don't ever play? I don't ever play like Poison Dooley. Even though I know it's good, I suck with Dooley. I just can never seem to get the pieces together. I
Yeah.
did once and I really enjoyed it. But like,
Well,
I'll try to play Poison Dooley.
I think those kinds of quests are perfectly fine, but I don't think you put them in a daily sense. I think you put them in a weekly, monthly, or a battle pass. Something that you don't feel like I'm logging in today in order to get my currency. I gotta do some shit I don't know how to do in a mode that I don't want to play. I think you just need to give people more time, so that way when they're doing their daily play Vanessa games, you're like, oh, the battle pass has a play, have a board of 10 anno items on day 9 or something. I don't know, some weirdly specific thing that you're like, all right, well, I can't cheese this. I gotta do some sort of ammo build. And then like as you're just playing Vanessa naturally, you'll have incentives to do this. I think that's a little more how I would like to see it go. I just with daily quests, I've played enough gotchas to know a single bad daily quest can be so fucking annoying when you got to do it because tomorrow it's another damn chore you don't want to do and another damn chore you don't want to do. So I
I
just want to
I
be careful.
absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And another thing that I would love in beta would be a battle pass. Give us more reasons to give you more money.
Hmm.
Um, because I don't even care how you end up doing it for the most part, but it's like, just having another reason to play the game and things to collect and
I will
and
be
bars
shocked if
go up.
open beta doesn't have a way to monetize the game. I will be shocked. I know that's
I mean,
not
they're
their top
making
priority, but it's got to be a priority, right?
they're making a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? So 120K players, we already did like the math, they're at least 2.8 million so far, and I just spent 33 more dollars. So we are going to have a giveaway. So if you made it all the way to this point, there is going to be a giveaway. We're probably going to run it for a week, and then next we'll announce the winner at the next podcast or whatever. But this was for science, right? So I was kind of losing so much, and people are like, "Oh no, you're only averaging 6.5 wins." Well, that feels like shit. I can tell you that. So everybody who is averaging that for the last month or whatever we've been playing, I understand your problems now. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I know what it feels like to have multiple wins in a row, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I bad? Like, and then I go watch Crip play, and he's making the same decisions I would make, and I'm like, well, then not all the same decisions because obviously he's a better player, but it's like, okay, I didn't just magically lose all my skills all of a sudden. My competition got tougher. Is there really a hidden rank in Legend? So I bought a new account, played like 4 games on there today. Um, as far as the tutorial, still like bots the first 4 or 5 days. After that, you played against what seemed to be real people, real builds,
Maybe dev
and
builds.
I
Maybe they designed those builds for those days.
maybe dead builds, but they were a lot stronger than the first time I did the tutorial.
Okay, then probably not.
Um,
Okay.
So obviously we had no idea what we were doing then. But if I was playing the cards I was playing during the first tutorial, I wouldn't have got 10 wins. So I'm not even sure you're promised 10 wins in the tutorial anymore. Maybe they just give you worse builds at the end, right, and peter you out. But I did lose twice to getting my 10 wins there. Then I went directly into ranked, played 4 ranked games, and I went 2-2-7-4, something like that. Um, and so it was really no different. I was seeing the same exact meta builds. I was going up against OG settlers, right, which are very, very rare accounts. If you played a lot of this game, you know that like there's not a ton of those like sitting around. I've played against more OG settlers in the last week than I had never seen one, I think, before that. And I don't even know how you get that. Do you know, Plat?
Maybe it's a friends and family thing because I don't know. I don't even know what titles I have or what my title is, if I'm being honest. I just like, okay, I'm a grand
And it
founder.
could be a title I have, but I don't even know how you change a title.
That's not implemented. You're not able to change your title yet.
Okay.
So maybe it's a friends and
And
family thing. OG, maybe it's a developer. It's something that's before closed beta. It's got to be. It's an alpha tester of some kind. I would
yeah.
assume because
So I
I
played
spent
against a
the most
lot
amount
of
of money that
them.
I would let me. So I want that title if it's available.
Yeah, well, they did have the Indiegogo one as well, and
Mm,
they mailed out the dualies, and those look sick, by the way. I'm kind of upset that I didn't know about the game back then because I would have definitely done the Indiegogo one. But
me as well.
um,
Yeah.
I think it's important to say, based on my small sample size, 4 games versus, all the other games I played, I'm very confident that what everybody's saying is true. There is no matchmaking, and of course, that causes that secondary problem that we already went over earlier, which is new players just getting beat down by, let's say 80% of the people you will face after day 5 are rock stars. They're like top 3,000 players or whatever. That's definitely how the game feels right now. As somebody at that power level, I feel like I'm playing against somebody as good as me or stronger. Generally every day after day 5.
Yeah, typically I could tell pretty easily. Like I'll even sometimes I'll lose against not very strong builds because my shit hasn't come together. But for the most part, if I'm on day 4, 5, or 6, I could see their build and I could see like good, 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 good. What's that item doing there? Like there's something better. It's not synergistic. And maybe they're like me where they just don't have it together. But I see a lot of those things earlier on. And then where I could tell is like they think they have a perfect build here that's synergizing really well, but they don't realize that bushel is not always the best item. Like sometimes they'll just have like a build that, but like, oh, they'll have a bushel bird, partridge in a pear tree. And I'm like, that's just, but this game is so fundamentally built around synergies, not for the most part, not just individually powerful items. There are maybe some exceptions like yo-yo, right? But in a way that synergizes with everything.
Yes.
But point is, yes, I agree with you. Once you get past that, they're just builds are very refined at this point. There's not like you might make concessions, but you're making the concession. You're not like, oh, I wonder if this is better or if this is better. You're like, no, no, no. These are the 6 items that I want to make the fully synergistic build. And then the concessions are usually I didn't get the skill, so instead of like I'll take out weights if I get like a certain skill or something that like, oh, when I shield, or if I get an enchantment on my vineyard that shields, then I get that thing. Now I don't need weights anymore, so um that kind of stuff. But yeah, basically, yeah, you're right. I don't know what new players are supposed to do right now because unranked is harder than ranked because people are rerolling like to get their 10 wins. Ranked is very difficult because everyone's very good and it's only the top percentage of players are able to get in there in the first place because they're the best players and have the currency. So I don't know what you do as a new player right now. I think the first step, you gotta put some sort of anti rerolling measure in unranked. I don't know what it is. We've talked about that in a previous episode, but I think that is a fundamental issue that's going to affect all aspects of the game in a negative way. You want people to play in unranked in general. You
Yeah.
want them to enjoy that time. You want it to be easier on average.
And here's another fun fact. So like last time we talked, it was definitely true that unranked was harder than ranked. Due to like this drop in player base or whatever kind of thing is going on. I started 3 days ago playing 1 or 2 unranked games a day because I'm like, well, if I'm not profitable, I still am going for 10 wins. How about my 10 wins gets me 100 and my losses get me nothing, right? So it's like at this point, instead of just slowly losing money, which is what I was doing at 6.5 average wins, I would try that. And it is easier, but it doesn't mean I get 10 wins, right? So like I get 7+ wins really easy, because the people are trying to all play the meta build still, but they're just worse at it, right?
Yeah.
So like in the early days, I can see all the time where I'm like, wow, your board is so much weaker than I play in ranked. I have no idea why. You know, it could be because you just weren't offered things. It could be because you're a weaker player, whatever. And sometimes I just see people in the early days playing nonsense. But once you get to day 11, 12, 13, the same problem exists, right? Where it's only strong people.
So the re-rolling aspect must be weaker in influencing the power level of runs than the overall player base just existing there being much bigger. Um,
Yeah.
because again, the smaller the ranked queue gets, the more competitive it gets. And there's only 2 people, you know, it's pretty hard to win because you're the 2 best players in the game. But I guess in unranked, it's just like because there's so many people playing it that there's a lot of people that aren't that good playing it. But like I said, the lower ends are easier and the higher ends are potentially harder still because of the reroll thing. So maybe like if you get to day 12, day 13, I bet those are god builds like almost every single time. But
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I said like I'm not promised 10 wins at all, right? I very often just lose 3 in a row at the end because like I have a very reasonable strong build and they're just like popping off, you know.
yeah, there's just it's not far off. It's kind of like, but there's something that just needs to be adjusted and everything will start kind of clicking. But right now there's like a gear going the wrong direction and things are kind of getting locked up. But once they just adjust, make it so, I don't know, I unranked is more fun. As long as people are having fun with the game, that's all that matters. But people are human and humans like seeing number go up, and people will not play unranked purely for fun. They're playing to get 10 wins so they can go into ranked and then see their number go up by getting 7 wins, you know, because they feel like they don't need to win as much to get a positive outcome. It being fun is a prerequisite, but it is not sufficient, is all, you know. That's video games in whole, especially now with you're playing with 30-year-olds. Who's playing this? Is it 10-year-olds? They're playing Fortnite. This is a bunch of 30-year-olds that have played Hearthstone when it came out and are now ready for the next thing. So fun is a prerequisite, but not sufficient. Is there anything else you want to talk about the closed beta issues? There was the player churn, no matchmaking. I think just to touch again, yeah, we could talk about freeze. This is kind of looping back to the balance thing. Freeze is a special issue, but in general, like I just wanted to restate that I think if they do balance patches, it keeps more players in the game. Everyone gets excited, and then the more players there are in the game, the less the meta issues will be a problem, because again, it'll just we talked about it. I've talked about it 6 times so far. You know, more players in the game is good for countless reasons. Freeze is a unique issue because it's one of those things in a video game where I don't even think it matters its power level on an objective sense, is that it always feels bad, and it's kind of an antithesis of what makes the game fun. Now, playing freeze is fun. It's fun to, you get 6 seconds and all their shit's frozen. You're like, haha, I don't care what your stupid build does. I'm not even gonna look at your items. It's fun. But it's equally as bad. One, a freeze build that's that strong is gonna win. You'll feel good. I guess the only counter thing is that it's not going to beat more than one player. Someone's going to come up against it and get destroyed by it, and then it takes the ghost out. But it's, when you're playing against freeze, it's like the antithesis. You're playing solitaire, essentially. You're making a build. You're theorizing how these will synergize together. You're trying to optimize it. You're making 100 micro decisions a day based on where you go, how you spend your money, how you do this. And then you finally get it all together. You go into a PvP fight, and you just have to watch as none of your stuff does anything. It's just like, it's such a not fun experience that I think even if freeze is nerfed to the point where it's not good, that it still would maybe feel too bad to exist. Now, I think that problem gets less and less and less. The worse it gets, the less people are going to use it, because people fundamentally don't want to lose. There will always be players that run meme builds to make other people mad. But for the most part, if it's not profitable and you're going to lose when you try to dedicate a full build to freeze, as opposed to like a tech slot, then it's likely to be just not ran. So I do think they need to nerf freeze. I'm more on the side of I would like to see it removed, but that's a little extreme because I think it does serve a relatively reasonable place within the overall ecosystem of the mechanics. But first, I want to see it butchered to hell. I want to see it like way weaker first. I don't want a full freeze build to be viable, in my opinion. I either more counterplay, more items that counter freeze, lower all the numbers and make it so freeze items can't get higher numbers outside of ranking them up or something, and maybe make it so certain like snow globe and stuff doesn't get more freeze by ranking it up. Maybe it starts at gold instead. Just butcher it, and then if it's too weak, you can always buff it. If it's still too strong after it's butchered, I think it might be time to remove it. But what do you think about freeze?
Yeah, I agree with almost everything you say, other than I don't want to see a mechanic leave the game currently. But butcher the hell out of it, yes. I love that. And we're in a closed beta, even if we were in an open beta. Like, there's nothing wrong within these situations, just saying, let's slash the power level by like 2/3 and see what happens. You know what I mean? And if we need to bring it back up a little bit, we can. But I was talking to Plaid before the cast, and I was like, if if the abilities of the freeze items were cut in half, I'm still taking freeze skills and I'm still taking certain freeze items, right? So it's like, I don't think freeze needs to be a build, like all freeze, but I think freeze could be a way to tech in against certain stuff and punish. Particularly, I know there's not a ton of ability to tech, but right now there is. Like, I keep certain items because if I see a character, I have like a 50% chance of knowing what they're running past day 6. So all of a sudden, like, I can actually try to like meta and mess with them. But being able to punish like 2 item builds, right, where you don't have things that actually trip time, I think is fantastic. And even if you cut the time in half, because there's so few targets, if you have 4 1-second freezes, you now have 2 2-second freezes, or what, you know what I mean, or 1 4-second freeze. So it's like, I think we can nerf the hell out of it and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect, counter builds as tech. You could HP Pig usually has one active item. It usually has the double whammy or the lion staff. The rest is all about getting HP. And bee pig, if you're all in on the bee, you're just using vineyard and land scraper and then bee with some skills. Like, a little bit of freeze can still do its job very well. And at that point, I feel like I have one item. If they have one thing of freeze, you know what, that's on me, right? I did not tech against that at all. I'm just gonna lose. I actually ran, like, I got 10 wins today, and I did a weaker build where I took out a medium item and put in 2 small items just in case they had freeze, right? So it was a little bit weaker, still strong enough to win, obviously, but like, that kind of is where I want it to be normal for freeze, where it's like, all right, you're thinking about it, but you're not like completely just, because right now, I had an entire freeze build as pig, but it's like an Exodia build. You need all 5 or 6 pieces. If you have 5 out of 6 pieces, it just kind of doesn't do much, and then you get that final piece, and suddenly you're just Exodia and you beat everybody. Vanessa just has the one small slot, the port, which is already a port build, and then you just have a freeze potion, which the port gives you apparently every time. It feels like when I'm playing against it, but it's just like, that's a full freeze, like 3 items for 3 seconds every 2 seconds, and I'm like, that's such little dedication to freeze the shit out of your entire board that I want to see that go for sure. If they do remove freeze, I wouldn't want them to remove the mechanic, like you said. I would just want them to rework the mechanic. And when I say remove freeze, I mean rework the mechanic, essentially, because there's too many items. I don't want all the items gone. It kind of confounds the meta problem. But you can make it so, like, a mechanical change where if something gets frozen, it doesn't stack. It can't be frozen again or something like that. It doesn't stack. Like, once you get frozen for 1 second, it can't get frozen again until it unfreezes or something like that. So that will help just with the timing of things, because like they
That'd
might
be really interesting.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, so now whatever, if it gets hit for 7 seconds, it is going to be a 7-second freeze. But if you get hit with 1 second and then 7 seconds, the 1 second hit first, and so it's like, that could be a thing. You can make it so if you unfreeze, you have freeze immunity, or every time you get frozen, you have a 2-second freeze immunity after unfreezing. Something like, they could do some sort of mechanical change to nerf the mechanic, which I think is a better idea. To go a step further, if they're like, people still hate it, they could change freeze to like chill. It could be effectively a slow plus, not slow plus, but like a slow and additional effect. Like, all right, it just works the same as slow, but it also halves the number on the item or something. Like, all right, your weapon has half the damage, so it's kind of like a double slow, but it doesn't functionally work that way. So there's like a lot of things they could do besides just removing the mechanic. And so when I said remove the mechanic, I don't literally mean in that way. I mean like from a ground up, maybe rework, redesign to make it more less bad to play against, you know? Do you think any changes like that would make sense for Freeze?
Yeah, I like a lot of those ideas that you have, and I hadn't really thought of them. So it's like, yeah, I think the idea of the timing of the triggering, you no longer want to play 1 second freeze items with your 4 5 second freeze items.
Mm-hmm.
You want to either have 2 5 second freeze items, but you need to now pay attention to the timing they will go off and how many targets your opponent has. It just adds a lot more complexity. Like it can still be really good if you math it out and happen to get lucky with the number of targets they have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so it has the ability to still be almost as good as it is now, but on average is going to be remarkably less good. And people, when they're learning that it's less good, are going to get beaten to the ground, which is going to cause them to want to play it less. Which of course, helps us on multiple fronts right now. Which is we don't have enough people playing things that are not the exact same power level or whatever, the meta builds. So seeing people play things that are different is good. That's why you have the whole change for the sake of change is good in this game, because having OP builds isn't really a problem. Having the same OP build for too long is a problem.
Yeah, and I don't think that any of those changes would necessarily fix the port freeze potion thing, but I think that's a separate issue. I think that's like purely a balancing issue of like, okay, that interaction is just too strong. Um, I honestly think the freeze potion port is a fine thing to exist if it's way more rare. Because I think it should have around the same power, the same rarity as like if you were playing Pygmalion and you bought a yo-yo and then you bought the 3 small item thing and you sold it, you could get a second yo-yo. I mean, I don't think I've literally had that in 200 runs as Pig, even before when they maybe 100 runs when they had yo-yo. But that existing, I think, is actually totally fine. It's so rare. So if they can find a way by just adding more characters, to with ammo items to make it like 1/5, 1/10 as common as it is now, I don't think they actually need to change anything. But I think right now, as a temporary fix, I think you might just remove the port's ability to give you items. I feel like it does everything right now. It's an econ item, it's a power item, it's a reload item.
That brings why, yeah, it's good at too many things for sure. You brought up a great point that we did talk about. We never added it to our list, but what I'd like to do is go to an ad break, and then after our ad break, we can go ahead and hit the ground running on what you just brought up, which is, oh, I lost it.
It's all right.
If you have
okay,
if you
port.
have if you want to change the rarity, like the amount of times it shows up, you can independently target, right?
Mhm.
The how often things show up and do that on the back end, and whether we like or dislike that. So we'll just go to the ad, because as you know, we lost for something Platt said last podcast. Go back and double check it. Like, I can't believe he said that, but we lost another
I just want to I want to
sponsor.
defend myself, all right? All I said, well, you know what? You're right. Okay, it's hard to give you the right context because it's just gonna sound wrong. So we got a new one though. We're doing pretty well. We're making money. So let's go ahead and read out our new sponsor.
All right. Today we are brought to you by Walter Cooler. Feeling the heat of battle? Time to chill out with Walter Cooler, the most refreshing item in the bazaar. This isn't your average hydration station. Walter Cooler keeps your team cool under pressure and ready to go the extra mile. Whether you're taking a hit or giving it one, this delightful dispenser of relief restores health and boosts your staying power, keeping you in the game longer than your opponents can handle. But that's not all. With Walter Cooler by your side, you'll stay cool, calm, and collected no matter how intense things get. It's the perfect companion for strategists who know that endurance wins the race. So why sweat it when you can chill with Walter Cooler? Find it in the bazaar and stay frosty, because winning is always cooler when Walter's around.
Thank you very much, Walter Cooler, for that awesome sponsorship. Now, this is not Walter Cooler on the screen. This is Monitor Lizard. I hope they don't get mad about that, but this is the closest I had. So hopefully we still have them next week, but we'll see. So yes, thank you for that ad read. It's support like you guys watching that makes this possible. All right, so let's talk about what we were going to talk about when we were talking about it. I forgot what it was though. It was my turn. Your turn. You bring it back up again.
All right, so I'll frame it for you.
Okay.
So if we want port to show up less often, obviously adding more options, makes sense. But what if we just turn down the rate that he shows up without, he's just hyper rare. He has a 1% drop rate. Everybody else has whatever, 9% drop rate.
I'm of a couple minds of this. As long as the game comes out better and more fun on the other end, I essentially don't care. However, I hope to God they never tell anybody if they decide to do that. I just think it's too. I think every player would say don't do that because it just it feels bad when it's your favorite item and now you have 1/5 the chance to find it. In a sense, they do that by making an item gold only or diamond only, right? But when it goes the diamond only, it essentially no longer exists for most runs. I don't like it, but I don't care if they do it as long as it makes the game more fun. I just don't really want them to tell me because I think I will. It's very easy to blame things that aren't me. Then I'm like, okay, I'm going for this port build or whatever, and I lost. I did bad, and I'm like, well, it's because they fucking nerfed it, so I can't find my damn item. When the right answer was to never even go for that, but to pivot into something else or something. But as long as the game's fun, I mean, I don't really care. And to say just adding, so this is something this is good to mention really quick. People in the Discord and people in messages, they're like, oh, the forcing the meta thing is because there's not enough, they don't have all the items in the game right now. I don't understand that argumentation because the characters are essentially done. Yes, Pig is like out like 6 item removes or something like that, but like these are, to my understanding, completed characters for the most part. They are considered done. If they add 100 more items to the game, 200 more items to the game, they're not going to be character specific. I know over time they're going to add packs like that. They're going to sell packs that you're going to be able to buy. I think they're going to be sold, but
They're only like 20 items.
Yeah, but they're like small item pools over the course of like once a year or something like that, or every other year or something. It's like every 3 months they're going to add a pack for a character instead of like every character always gets packed. So they're not adding a bunch of items to the game. And if they add 100 neutral items, they don't show up in your shops, right? I don't even know where they would put those neutral items. But they show up in Curio, they show up in random monsters that they add to the game. But unless they add a bunch of items to a specific character, that's not going to really be adjusted. I don't think there's not like there's a ton more items going for each character. And if they add more characters, it doesn't affect Pygmalion's pool. It's still the same exact problems. And they're not going to add 100 cards to Pygmalion because that's a lot of work and very difficult to design a whole secondary set of cards that still works within the character, that are like textiles but not quite textiles, that is silk but not quite silk, that are similar, like, oh, scaling shield item, a medium scaling shield item. Okay, well, but it can't be quite that. Now it needs to, when you sell medium items, so that's too much work. So yes, I'm okay with them, to get back to the point, I'm okay with them specifically nerfing item appearance rates. I think before they do that, they should first adjust which merchants can show up for which characters, to see if that solves the problem, as such as like Vanessa doesn't need a vehicle merchant. She doesn't need a large item merchant. Maybe she could have just, if Vanessa just has a small and large item merchant, a medium and large item merchant, instead of a dedicated large item merchant, is that enough balance to make some of these overpowered items show up less? I think it's hard to fit the lore. Like, why wouldn't she like the large item merchant, I guess, when everyone has access
Maybe
to it?
you don't see him until a certain day.
Yeah, maybe you can't show up before a certain day, like I don't think Sterling shows up after day 8 or something like that, right? So they can mess with a lot of that stuff there. But I think increasing the pools of items through removing merchants is a better solution in terms of it being transparent to players. However, it may not equal as good of a game, but I feel like that's a very fair game piece to adjust. That's a fair mechanic to adjust, and everyone could understand that. Whereas specific targeting, I'm less of a fan of, but just don't tell me if you do it. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. I think targeting the weights and when things can show up as far as shops is probably the better way to attack it. Now with shops, I don't think you need to tell us that you changed it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it will just happen and people will be like, man, I never see that anymore. But with specific items, you would have to tell them. So I agree with everything you said about how it would make people upset and it would be something to blame, blah, blah, blah. But imagine this. Imagine tomorrow we have a little patch for servers and they slip in 1 in 100 chance of freeze potion, and then all these people are forcing trying to get a freeze potion, and they never hit it, and they don't know why. That is super frustrating, and that causes probably a bigger problem than the other thing we were talking about. While if you at least release it in patch notes and say, due to this reason, we reduced the appearance rate of this thing, because we've done that up and down a bunch of times with the battle encounter, right? I
Mhm.
hit the monster all the time now, and there was a period where you just couldn't hit the monster.
And yeah, exactly. The mountain pass. I did the mountain pass 60 times, and every time I was like, I know it's gonna give me one experience, uneventful, but this time it might not. Even though it was, I think, literally ended up saying like, hey, it wasn't possible before, but we fixed it. I was like, damn it, I played myself. I never got it, but I still go to it every single time. But yeah, so they did adjust
Here's
that. Um,
here's my
and
favorite part of that. They actually had to do it twice. The first patch, they said they adjusted it, right? Um, because it wasn't working. And then the next patch, they had to say the same thing. And it was that middle patch that we almost missed on like the 14th. And they're
okay.
like, now it actually will give it to you. So they literally gaslighted us and said, you can get it. Everybody started going in there. You still couldn't get the fight.
And now I think it's above 33%. I think it's like a 50%. Um, I feel like it's a roughly a 50% for me, and then 25% uneventful, 25% random item ish. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but that's what it's kind of felt like to me. Um,
Yeah, I've been hitting probably 2/3, but like with two people, you can't really do anything with that. But like it's up there. It feels great.
yeah, no, I pretty much, the only thing I don't like about it, okay, I actually think it's in a good spot because it's almost always, nearly always the objective right decision to go there. Because it's so much better if you get it. However, because it's not guaranteed, it's not actually mathematically always going to be the best decision. Um, and maybe you have a weak
I
build
think
because
it's
you can fight the
mathematically.
hard guy on that fight. And if you're on day 4 or something or whatever, like the Lich can show up, I'm like, I don't even want to risk it, bro. I always risk it. But
I always.
there is a chance that it's actually the wrong decision, even though it feels good to do it. Because it's not guaranteed. Because if you just get one experience, that's worse than just the event where you find the sunken chest or whatever, right? So, because you get 2 gold, 1
Yeah.
experience from like the sunken gold chesting. So then it's like a pretty bad decision. But I like that because it's not guaranteed. I think it's balanced. I think if you guaranteed it, it would be too strong. Um,
Yeah, I have lost a few times to the hardest person, you know what I mean?
yes, me
And
too.
I honestly wouldn't mind it if it was always one of like the rightmost enemies, so that like you knew you couldn't go in there for an easy fight. So even though it's 50-50, like you got to be strong to be able to take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, if you have like early, like if you're using, I'm doing Silk Dog, but they just haven't scaled it all yet, I'm like, I'm not gonna risk it. It just, and then sometimes I'm so strong, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you got in there, I'm taking it. Then it's Lich, and I'm like, oh, I had a Lich show up, and I was like, no, why are you so much stronger than you're stronger than the late game bosses, bro? Why is he so strong? Kriparian just did a video about getting the wand, which is a Lich unique item, and it's really cool. And he's like, yeah, and I got it from a random event. I'm not fighting the Lich, he's like, there's no way I'm not brave enough to fight the Lich. That's just throwing away 5 experience, or it's not throwing away 5. It's throwing away 2 experience because the alternative is that you get 2 for fighting something you can actually beat. But yeah. So was there anything else about that topic that we wanted to talk about, or do we want to move on to our final topic?
Yeah, no, I feel good about that, and I'm ready to go. What do you got for us?
I think the last thing we don't have time to get over everything that we wrote down because we always talk too much. Hot takes. How about some hot takes? I think it'd be a fun item section to do like a hot take for the game, and maybe it's a warm take. It doesn't actually. It could even be a cold take, but we're gonna call it hot takes. Do you have any hot takes for the game right now?
I do. Let's see. I don't want to steal yours, so I'm gonna go with there's nothing wrong with being able to force the meta, even though we put a lot of advertising and like the whole basis that you can't force the meta, but I think that's okay. Um, I just think that we need balance changes, and I also think it's unavoidable even if you got to a point where like this was like a drafting game, there would always be a best thing that you'd be trying to do if you could get those cards. So that's still like kind of a meta. Like in MTG, there's people who do entire draft videos going over the set and saying like these are the archetypes that are the strongest, and if you get the option to play them, you should because you get these high roll, abilities and stuff like that. So I think it's perfectly okay to have metas. Just everything and everybody gets their turn. Frequent updates, and you always have a problem solving period, and the better players get there first. And that's kind of one of the funnest times to play is when you get a change in the meta.
In fact, I would even add on a little bit to that and just say I think balance changes or patches are so important to everything that makes this game fun and interesting and keeping players in that I would encourage them to make changes for the sake of changes, which is not normally something I'm against. They're like, I don't know, let's just buff this. It's not very like if everything seems like it's a good, even balanced meta, just buff some stuff and nerf some stuff anyway. Just just make changes so people have a reason to come in because I think that developing metas are basically impossible to avoid in the current structure of the game, which I guess is currently my hot take. Is the fundamental core identity of what the game was supposed to be, and I guess in one sense, one of their fundamental design philosophies was that you can't force a meta, and that because of it's just too random essentially, and your idea is the draft is like Magic the Gathering drafting. You can't force stuff in that. If you do, it's always shit. You can, but it's always bad. And I think that's kind of what they were going for. You could force, but it's a very weak version of that. Or you just play good value stuff and you can play the hands you're dealt. I don't think that's the state of the game. I think it's very easy to force metas for the most part. I don't have that much issues. Maybe you're missing one item and you have to make some concessions. But again, once you go up, and when you even if you can't force a meta, your opponents are, because you're going up against the best of the best, the people that have made the high wins. So even when you don't force the metas, you're going up against the metas. So it always feels like the meta is there looking at you, even if you're not able to get it yourself. I don't, again, and I think that kind of combines with him. I think metas are fine. I think it's okay to force metas and have a meta as long as you keep adjusting it, micro adjustments, maybe some major adjustments in the sense that puff or fish should just be like nuked for a week. Maybe maybe nerf it too much, and we're now Poison Vanessa is like a bad character, and suddenly everyone has to rediscover, and touch maybe port as well, like the two biggest builds on each character. Maybe make HP Pig worse. I don't know, but just do changes for the sakes of changes, as long as they keep making changes. But right now, I think I don't want to say they failed, but I don't think with the way the game is designed, with the current item pools, with the current event pools, with the current amount of shops that they can avoid a very stable meta developing on a week to week basis. I think their best way to compete against that is to just keep adjusting it, so people are kind of always trying to figure out the meta as opposed to playing in a solid meta. But again, I'm not a doomer. I like metas. I like learning a meta and discovering it and playing it and becoming good and being rewarded for that. I just don't like, but I really feel this week without a balance patch. I really feel it. It's arguably my least favorite meta. It's pretty darn stale, and it's literally only like a week without a patch. So I really think they are going to want to be on a weekly cadence. I don't know if that's their plan. I hope so, because I actually think with the way the game currently is, that at least with the balance being so out of whack, with, I guess a quick second point, I would like them to adjust, if possible, some of the power level of builds from synergies to individual item level power. Right now, I feel like things are just too connected. The synergy with item A with item B is stronger than anything item C could do, even if item C in general could be a better item. So I would like, I would think synergy is crazy important for a game like this, but I think that they could find a way, just in general, lower the synergy power levels and adjust a little bit of that to single items, where it's not always better to run a synergy over a potentially good item. Or sometimes like, this isn't synergistic, but it's still good. Like Jabalian Longbow on days 1 through 3 is fantastic. It doesn't synergize with freaking anything, but it just does 180 damage over 8 seconds. So it's good to run. But then you get to day 4 or 5, the item sucks and can never do anything again, but maybe some more items with power levels like that. That's all I have to say.
And that actually does synergize, right? So I think we just want some low synergy things to still be
Yeah.
good, because that synergizes with having more HP than your opponent, right? So
Exactly.
like it does encourage you to take more HP things and to do healing, right? Because that allows you to continue to stay at a higher HP than the opponent. So but I would like to see a lot of those things. Like, what's the fake Regal blade? Like Pig's knife? Like,
Yeah, Pygmalion's dagger. I actually do have that skin. It's one of the ones that you can get. Um,
yeah,
it's
I've never played that because it's just so much worse than Regal Blade, and even with Regal Blade gone, it's not. It doesn't feel good enough by itself. Because well, maybe if we still had Silver Loop, right, we could probably work with it. But
this item just needs to be silver. I think this item just sucks right now. Uh, at silver, and you could have it as a starting item. I think you should be able to get Pygmalion's dagger as a starting item. If you have to nerf it to make it viable for that, I think it's fine. But it's his dagger. I think it should be in the pool. I think like if you're gonna have Dooley's scarf, Vanessa's amulet, and Pygmalion's dagger named items, I think they should be in the starting pool as potential items. That just feels
and
thematic to me.
none of them are in the starting items, I believe.
I thought the amulet was Vanessa's amulet, but I haven't played her enough to actually know. Um,
I've played a lot of her. I've never taken the amulet. That doesn't mean it wasn't offered.
yeah.
Um, but
Uh,
those other two are silver items. Having only Pygmalion's dagger gold seems kind of weird.
Yeah, it just because everyone else, I think that this just needs. I'm sure there was like a family and friends. This item was busted for some reason, and then they just nerfed it up to gold. I think it needs to be buffed down to silver, and it still may not be good there. Like money, cash cannon sucks, bro. Cash cannon can work, but it's you need to get it up to like gold or diamond so fast for it to be viable because it's still not good. It's just so bad at silver. And this is very similar to that,
Yeah.
if not. So I think like yeah, when I'm talking about synergies again, there's a huge difference between money tree and dog. They both get powerful when you sell spare change or small items in dog's case. But the synergy between them is a small change can money tree, silk, and dog all get stronger. There's a heal, a shield, and a damage item. All get stronger when you sell a spare change because it meets all the conditions, even though they all have different conditions. That's a perfectly good synergy. That's like a low level kind of fun synergy versus, B land scraper with a shield and a bird. Like it's like, oh, I get 15,000 shield in 4 seconds because you used your items, you idiot. It's like that's that kind of synergy level where it's so powerful. Even like Vineyard Waits bird, I think is too strong as a synergy, even though it's not the best build in the meta. I think that if that was the baseline of like power level, as like what's good, I still think that would be too high. I think they gotta nerf all that stuff and just kind of bring it down. Have more of the dog silk money tree synergies that are maybe synergy light that all get powerful in the same way, but you don't have to build an entire build around it. If you sell the money tree, suddenly your whole build doesn't fall apart. You still got the dog and silk scaling, or any one of those parts can leave and they would all still be reasonable items. Money tree does suck, but it can be okay mid game.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. And if you make it all coins, you would just make it so it scales harder, right, off of the coins, than it does. Well, the two that currently scale off of any small item. But yeah, more early game builds would be nice, like things that you can pick up and then transition to other things. I think one of the most difficult parts of the game is understanding transitioning because there's so little things that directly correlate for transitions,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes you have to actually like you're only keeping 2 items out of your build, but it is a transition towards something else. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's not like Battlegrounds where it's like I'm in the first 5 turns I got all demons and now I'm on turn 9 and I found more powerful demons. Like they fit right in. This is more like I'm going shield, and so you're gonna look for shield items, but it's not really the same because you don't know what those potential items are. They may not actually fit in the right way into your build that you're trying to build. Um, so yeah, like when I played like this, I noticed it immediately. I didn't feel it when I was playing Pygmalion, but the second I played a game as Dooley a couple days ago, I was like, I have no fucking idea what decision to make because I have no idea what I'm aiming for at the end game. I have no concept of what I'm aiming for. There's just a blank wall. I'm like, and that, in a sense, that's fine, like to learn the game, but also, even especially in like Pygmalion, there's not very many early game builds that are like can transition to late game builds in kind of a direct way. There's no like, I'm not leveling up, getting value off of my property's item value, and then switching into skyscrapers is like the nuts big high end. There's no little skyscraper to use until I find the good one, So there are builds that just are, I would like to see more things early game, yeah, that could transition. More supported archetypes early game. Because right now, I'll admit, we could talk about this next week. Pygmalion has some issues. Supporting a strong economy archetype in the early game has its issues. Because if you have to bail out of it, oh no, I only got 50 gold from bailing out of my failed archetype. You know, so yeah, Pygmalion has some issues in that regard, but sorry.
Yes.
I have nothing else to add.
So before I give my last hot take, I wanted to encourage others, like please comment if we can get some hot takes to bring on here with our own. That would be pretty
Yeah.
cool. You know, us talking about the things that we're going to talk about, we've already probably let each other know, and we're already at a place where we're decided. But it's cool to have a topic that we can kind of just go over and see where things go with that. But I think my hottest take, and we've already talked about this, so I'll just keep it like a tight two sentencer, but is if we don't get more players into the game because of the change of scope of you know, closed beta, the game is not going to be fun. So we gotta figure something out, some way to bring people back. It's not like we don't have enough players. 120,000 is a hugely successful closed beta, and I know the number is higher now because I just bought another two
Yeah,
slots.
at least
So
+1.
and people are coming in, you know what I mean? I really do believe that. It's just, what does the experience look like for those people when most of the people playing the game are going to be much better than them in ranked? And if they don't even really think of, because I would not naturally think my first few times playing a game that like I should just re-roll. You know what I mean?
No,
That I shouldn't be
I still
playing
wouldn't
the whole.
re-roll just because I just don't like to play in that way. I'm not judging people that do. You're playing the game, even if the game is a meta game. That's still part of the game. So I don't blame people that do re-roll. I just don't like playing in that way.
And I have been enjoying playing Dooley, as I'm really bad with him in unranked, and trying just to see what does and doesn't work, right? So that's actually been the most fun I've had in the last week of playing. I'm not getting 10 wins with Dooley, right? But when I get 7 wins, I feel like that's a W for me because I can't get 7 wins in ranked with him. And I'm learning a lot about what are the good items, what are the bad items. Because I've watched Crypt play Dooley many times, and I still have no idea inside of his head what he's planning, but he gets there. You know what I mean? But when it comes to vendors, I'm like, I don't know which vendors I'm going to for which items. A lot of the things you said, only I'm a little more illuminated because I've played him more, and I know at least the boards that have beaten me, right? So it's like I'm trying to build those boards, but it's really hard when you don't know the pathing to get to that board.
Yeah, and it's like I take it for granted, but as Pygmalion, I'll skip all kinds of merchants because I'm like, they don't have anything I want. They don't have anything I want. And when you skip a merchant that doesn't sell anything you want, you're actually getting a benefit of, I don't know, gold, shield, regeneration, random events, experience. So, but and when I'm dually, I'm going to every merchant because I don't know what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for something, and so you're making yourself weaker by spending your time going to shops that aren't selling things you're particularly interested in. Because every time I'm like, oh, I could, because I'm waiting for that item to give me like, I could do this whole thing. There we go. So yeah, knowledge is super important in this game, and it's. I think the game's a little hard right now. To be honest. I actually am enjoying it still. I'm still having fun, even though it might be the most stale meta we've had, probably. With no adjustments and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like I'm still playing it every day and having a good time. It just, it's a very well designed game, even if I think that it does need to fix stuff. But this is the time to
I'm
fix it.
still
We're in
loving
closed
the
beta.
game. Yeah, I'm still loving the game. I just think I'm going to be playing a lot more normals until the next patch.
I honestly think that I'm probably going to be with you. I haven't played normals in a while, but I want to play dually. But right now, I'm like, I'm not going to that ranked ladder with dually or Vanessa. I just am not good enough right now. Because people are like, Pig is tier F, or he's the bottom tier. I'm like, yeah, but when I'm playing Pig, I can actually win with him. Shield Pig might be more powerful than everything else out there, besides some sort of insane infinite dually. And like once dually gets like an infinite like nuts roll, that I think he's the strongest character. But outside of that, like as a pure baseline build, Shield Pig is fucking strong, bro. Kicks the ass out of aggro Vanessa. That's why I like playing Pig, because they aggro Vanessa. They go, and I'm like, I got 4,000 HP still. And then they're like, yeah, but wait till that port reloads it in 4 more seconds, bro. Woo! And I'm like, all right, well, I got 14,000 shield. You're dead. I love fighting aggro Vanessa. As Pygmalion, I bet as dually, it'd be a nightmare, bro. because you have
That's
two.
been one of the roughest things about trying to learn Dooley when it's a Vanessa meta, is it's like I'm either getting poisoned and then I'm trying to go like infinite or like scale like really hard, and it's like, well, none of my shield matters. I'm poisoned. I'm dead.
Yeah, because
Or I'm
Pygmalion could survive poison because he has so much HP to get the scaling going. Dooley doesn't have any healing or any anti poison. I don't even know if he has a healing item. He has like Andy, whatever, the little robot Andy, but it's like few and far
Aiden.
between. Yeah, Aiden,
Yeah,
first Aiden.
first Aiden. So yeah, and first Aiden is really good. Don't get me wrong. You scale up his HP and he heals every time you haste, and hasting is kind of like a core mechanic of Dooley, right? So you can get a lot of hastes. But if your idea is I'm going to scale up and let the snowstorm beat you, I don't know why it's snow. Maybe it's just because it's winter now.
Yeah,
The Christmas season. But it's not going to happen. The poison's going to kill you before the snowstorm kills them. And then of course Dooley scales, right? So if they can just insta kill you in 3 seconds or whatever, you know what I mean, before your combo starts really going, then you're dead too. So Dooley, I think you would got to be good to play him right now. But if you can play him, he does look, at least the boards that make it to date 10 plus, the Dooleys are looking really good.
yeah. I mean, it's just a. I don't want to call it rock paper scissors, but because it'll be different when there's more characters. But like fundamentally, Dooley is weakest at second 0 than any other character because he's the strongest at second 30 or second 60. So he's the weakest at second 0, and Vanessa is strongest at second 0. She has a lot of, at the start of combat, fuck up your opponent's board with all these dumb shit mechanics, freeze 3 items for 8 seconds, and then deal 8,000 damage. Like, I can survive that as Pygmalion, especially in the late game, because they just don't quite get there usually fast enough unless it's a nuts roll with a bunch of infinite stuff going. But Dooley, I'm like, you're really struggling at that point. Harmadillo had a point because you could run Bunker Harmadillo and you just hit him for 6,000 while they were killing you with their 900 thrown daggers. But yeah, Dooley being the weakest at second 0 and Vanessa being the strongest at second 0 is definitely difficult to overcome. No doubt about that. But I want to say Lolliet let me know that during this podcast, we didn't talk about it first. We're doing a giveaway. Woo! Right? So in order to enter the giveaway, you have to leave a comment and you have to be subscribed. That's my only recommend. That's the only thing I require. Do you require anything else, Lolliet?
Nope.
Okay.
That's all I require
So
as well.
the program I use to select a winner will look for a random comment, and then I could check to see if they're subscribed. That's the only method I use. So easy peasy. Just be subscribed and leave a comment. And then also, leave us your hot takes. I want to hear your hot takes about the game. We will address them in the next video. I assume if everyone watching this leaves a hot take, we would still have enough time to address it, honestly, by the next episode. But yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, and I'm all done. Do you have anything else you want to add?
The only thing I wanted to say is I'm getting a little bit frustrated with the burn puffer fish, and there's a couple items that can really work with that. It's not just trebuchet. Somebody did it with something else against me today. I can't
Probably
remember what it was,
blunderbuss, maybe.
but being able to break the whole
Internal
cooldown
cooldown,
of like 0.2
yeah.
seconds. Yeah, breaking the internal cooldown is frustrating. I have lost multiple runs. Well, it's just one loss, but it's like if you can only get 3 losses, man, that one loss really feels bad when you run into somebody using an abusive mechanic like that. So
I don't know if
hope
there's a
that
good
gets
reason
updated.
for any item to break the internal cooldown. It feels like a safety valve that should be there for pretty much any item, even the infinite stuff, and have the internal cooldown like B. B can activate like 3 times a second, 4 times a second. That feels infinite. That feels like that's a ridiculously fast time. Does it really need to? I don't know if any item needs to be able to bypass that entirely that I could think of if there's a reason for an item to. So yeah, that should definitely be. I've never had it used against me, but I have seen clips, and I'm like, what the fuck is going? I can't even see what the items are. It's just that many fucking. It's like when when you got into the sandstorm with Harmadillo and the bunker. Why is that? I'm like, I don't know. They should just address those things. I am with you there because that's a.
Yes. I'm
little
guessing
silly.
that they have to set the cooldowns individually, but I wish there was like a global scaling so that they could just make sure that every interaction listen to the internal cooldown. And if there's a reason not to have them, then change them independently, right? So it's like move everybody there first, and then the ones that you really think need to be able to break that for some reason, you can do manually.
This is what I'm so afraid of. They're gonna come out with the new patch notes, and the patch notes is gonna say is like, hey, we've heard your complaints, so we've removed pufferfish from the game, we removed port from the game. I'm like, stop removing everything, just adjust a couple of them, bro. How do we have half the amount of items from when the game came out? Some of these got to be fixable. No, but right now
I'm wondering if I care. Do I care if they just remove like the next 5 best items? I think I'd be down to just see what that meta is like.
I would support it, but I would still be like, this is not the long-term solution we're looking for here.
No,
Give
it's not
me
the long-term
that
solution.
yo-yo, give me crook, make them bad, just put them back in the game. I want to have access to all my items. I want a medium item build around. I want a triggered item build around. And nerf B. I know I'm a pig player, but my god, that item is so much stronger than everything else. As a standalone item, that item is stronger than everything, and it synergizes with everything, and it beats everything, but outside of infinite scaling if you don't have good scaling on the B. But that item is redonkulous.
All right, bonus for all the people who made it to the end. Shout out to you. All right, bonus hot take from Per Platypus.
Okay.
All right, so tell me, what is the strongest independent item in the game? Is like ever since we've been playing? Is B it? Is the nerfed version of B actually the strongest thing that we've had?
I would say from a technical standpoint, no, because it's a 2-item kind of. It's a beehive and a bee. So you have to run 3 slots over 2 items. But
just think of it as a large item.
Because you would never run one without the other for literally any reason. B is, I think, stronger than Yo-Yo, which I think is absurd to say, because Yo-Yo, maybe Yo-Yo stronger. It's tough to say because it depends what you're building. Because you could build Yo-Yo around your build. B is always dependent on their build. If they are running one massive item, then B kind of is like the worst item in the game. And Yo-Yo can always be as good as you want it to be because it's on your build. But you're playing Pygmalion. I think if you're on Vanessa, B may not be the best item, but like you're playing Pygmalion, like, and you are not running 8 small items with your 7 small items, all with fast cooldowns and with a yo-yo, because all your small items suck. You know, like you have bird, and then everything else is a consolation prize, basically. And so I think relying on your opponents to run a bunch of items, like against Dooley, B's nuts, bro. He's just always activating. You counter his core mechanic. Yeah, I think the best item that ever exists in the game is B, that I've seen. I think it's way stronger than Crook ever was. Crook is oppressive early and it falls off late, even though it's always good. I think Crook is the strongest for when you can get it in the game, because a 10 damage B on day 3 is very good, but it's not gonna be like break the game. Crook, Diamond Crook, when you had the specific targeting, that was the strongest at the time you could get it. But yeah, I think B's the strongest item. Final answer.
I think you sold me on Yo-Yo, but
I think
B's top 3 for sure. I don't think anybody can make an argument for 3 items, like, because of course you could try to say like Skyscraper, but it's like Skyscraper had to have all this support. You know what I mean? B kind of can just be the 3, you know, the large item by itself.
I mean, Yo-Yo, if Yo-Yo was in Vanessa's pool, I think it would be stronger than B, probably, because maybe even in Dooley's pool, I think it would be the most powerful item in the game. The only way that item, it's still maybe the most powerful item in the game, and the only way that it's maybe not is because it's on Pygmalion, who even his strongest synergies with it are very mid. But it doesn't matter because they're so good. Yo-Yo is so good.
Other than B.
Yeah. If you have B and Yo-Yo, it's just so absurd because you have 2 Bs. The thing that Yo-Yo was so good, it made the Pygmalion drum good, like the Jalabian whatever fucking drum. That sucks, but I thought it was good for so long because Yo-Yo was so good, and it is good with Yo-Yo. But like that item is absurd when you have Yo-Yo. But without Yo-Yo, I'm like, oh, this is literally a dysfunctional item that does nothing. It's like so weak without all the triggers of Yo-Yo. So I think it's definitely close between those two. I think B ekes it out because it's self-scaling. it doesn't matter how strong your dually opponent is, it could just beat them because the more items they use. Yo-Yo has a cap. B almost has like no cap because the stronger your opponent is, the stronger B gets. Yo-Yo is tied to your strength on a character that doesn't love it, but it might be this. I'm still number it's tough. The point is there's a gap between some of those items and like brass knuckles, you know. To put those on the same they wouldn't be in the same conversation. So buff brass knuckles, nerf every item on every other character besides Pygmalion until I could win with the brass knuckles on my board. I just want to win with the brass knuckles on my board. Make it not objectively worse than the other 6-second multicast item in 99.9% of scenarios. It does. Yeah, that is. You got to make it better and somehow give it triple damage, and it's maybe better. Now I'm like, okay, now we're talking. It doesn't make any thematic sense for brass knuckles to do 1-2 and then you hit him with the dick. Like, I don't know, why does it have 3 hits? But they got to. I want some of these bad items. I'm gonna make a video about bad items that I want to see buffed on Pygmalion only. All right, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done. We're hour 22 minutes. We could have finished it in hour 5, but we had more hot takes.
yeah. Keep it going for you guys.
All right, are we good? Are you all done?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, that's gonna be all for today, guys. Thank you very much. Again, the giveaway. Again, give us your hot takes. I will be watching the comments, although Laliette will probably be watching them closer. I see him responding to comments more than I do. But yeah, that's all. Thank you very much. Much love per Platypus and Laliette or per Platypus, and we'll see you on the flip-flops. Bye! On the rise, watch the views go up. Content king, never down, always showing up, hitting my